Act 1. The Incident. At exactly 1:30 a.m., a call came into Michigan 911 dispatch. The man on the line sounded calm, almost eerily detached. "I just killed my family," he said. "My children are in the car. My wife is in the basement." When police arrived at the suburban home in Dearborn Heights, they didn't know they were about to walk into the aftermath of one of the most horrifying family massacres the state had ever seen. Inside the house, they found 39-year-old Faith Green in the basement, barely alive. She had been zip-tied, shot in the foot, and slashed across the face and chest with a box cutter. Beside her lay the bodies of her two teenage children, Chadney, 19, and Cara, 17, executed in front of their own mother. Outside, parked in the driveway, was the family car. Inside, lying eerily still in the back seat, were the bodies of two little girls, Coy and Kaylee, ages 5 and 4. They had been suffocated by carbon monoxide, but this was no accident. Gregory Green had murdered all 4 of his children and tried to kill his wife too. And this wasn't his first time, because 25 years earlier, he had murdered his first wife and their unborn child. This is not just the story of a man who killed his entire family. It's a story of second chances gone wrong, of a justice system that forgot who it was meant to protect, and of a mother who lived through the unthinkable, twice. Act 2, Timeline of Discovery. To understand the second massacre, you have to go back. July 1991, Gregory Green was in his mid-20s and living with his then-wife, Tanya Green. She was pregnant with his child and had 2 other kids from a previous relationship. Tanya had confided in her best friend, telling her that Gregory was acting strange, paranoid, aggressive. She feared for her life and made a plan. Go to church that Sunday, pack a bag afterward, and leave him for good. She never made it. That morning at 1:30 a.m., Gregory calmly called 911 and said he had stabbed his pregnant wife to death. When officers arrived, they found her body in the kitchen, stabbed 10 times in the chest and face. Her unborn child was gone. One of her children had witnessed everything from a closet. He was arrested on the spot. At trial, Gregory claimed insanity, but the court ruled him competent and sentenced him to 20 years for second-degree murder, a sentence that would eventually expire. Because in 2008, Gregory Green walked out of prison a free man. Act 3, The Victims and Their Life. After his release, Gregory settled back into normal life, or at least it seemed that way. He got a job, started attending church again, and then he met Faith Green. She was the daughter of a local pastor. Ironically, the very man who had written letters to the parole board urging Gregory's release. Faith had 2 teenage children from a previous relationship, Chadney and Cara. She later gave birth to 2 more daughters. Faith had 2 teenage children from a previous relationship, Chadney and Cara. She later gave birth to 2 more daughters with Gregory, little Coy and Kaylee. To outsiders, they looked like a happy blended family. Faith was loving and involved. The teens were quiet, respectful, and doing well in school. The toddlers were always smiling, carefree and full of life. But behind the walls of their suburban home, things were unraveling. Gregory was becoming controlling, angry, and abusive. In one chilling moment, he kicked a couch while the baby was lying on it. Faith tried to get a protective order. It was denied. She filed for divorce. She changed her mind. Then, in August 2016, she filed again. And 1 month later, he decided the family wouldn't live long enough to testify. Act 4, Crime Scene Breakdown. When police arrived at the Green family home on September 22, 2016, they found a house that had become a tomb. In the basement, they discovered Faith Green, barely clinging to life. Her wrists and ankles were zip-tied. She'd been shot in the foot, and her body was covered in slash wounds from a box cutter. Next to her, lying lifeless, were her teenage son and daughter, Chadney and Cara, both executed with a single gunshot to the head. But the most haunting sight was still to come. Inside the family's parked car, officers found the 2 youngest children, Coy, 5, and Kaylee, 4, dressed in pajamas, lying side by side in the back seat, dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. Gregory had rerouted the car's exhaust system with a hose pumping fumes into the sealed vehicle while his daughters sat inside, waiting, powerless. And when they died, he carried their tiny bodies back into the house and tucked them into bed, as if trying to erase the horror of what he'd done. Back inside, Faith lay bleeding, listening to her children being murdered one by one. Gregory didn't run. He called 911 again and confessed, then waited on the porch for police to arrive. The familiarity of it was chilling. Act 5. Suspicion and Lies. How did a man with such a brutal past slip through the cracks? After his first murder in 1991, Gregory Green had served nearly 16 years in prison. He applied for parole 4 times, denied each time due to a complete lack of remorse. He blamed his first wife, Tanya, for provoking him. He never apologized. He never expressed grief. But in 2008, the board finally caved, backed by letters of support from his family and from a pastor who would live to regret it. That pastor was Fred Harris, Faith Green's father. He'd mentored Gregory, believed in his spiritual rehabilitation, and even vouched for him in court. When Gregory was released, Fred welcomed him into the church. He even introduced him to his daughter. Faith didn't know the full story. Gregory avoided the subject. The red flags didn't come all at once. They came slowly: arguments, isolation, controlling behavior, bursts of anger. In 2013, Gregory kicked the couch while their baby lay on it. Faith tried to get a protective order. It was denied. She filed for divorce. But she stayed until 2016, when she filed again. This time for good. And that's when Gregory snapped.
Act 6. The Turning Point.
In his twisted logic, Gregory Green didn't just want revenge. He wanted to destroy every trace of the life Faith had built. Every child she had brought into the world. Every dream of a future without him. That morning, he lured her into the basement. He zip-tied her limbs, shot her in the foot so she couldn't escape, and slashed her body. Then, with her lying helpless on the floor, he brought the teenagers downstairs and executed them in front of her. Afterward, he placed the toddlers into the car and pumped in the gas. He didn't just want them gone. He wanted Faith to live with the memory, and she did. She survived. Gregory confessed, pled guilty, and showed no emotion in court. He stood before the judge, head slightly bowed, and repeated the same word, guilty, for each of the 4 children he murdered and for the torture of the woman who bore them. He received a sentence of 45 to 100 years in prison, plus 2 years for the firearm charge. He won't be eligible for parole until he is nearly 100 years old. And this time, there are no letters, no supporters, no second chances, just silence.
Act 7. Psychology and Motive. Gregory Green didn't snap.
He planned. The teenagers are not chaos of an angry man. It was the precision of someone who had already done it before and got away with it. The psychology of a repeat family annihilator is rare and deeply disturbing. Gregory wasn't a drug addict. He wasn't mentally ill in any diagnosed clinical sense. He was a manipulator, a man who controlled through fear and religious illusion. To those around him, he appeared humble, quiet, devout. In prison, he read the Bible, took classes, wrote apologies to a parole board he once defied. But deep inside, something darker had taken root. Gregory believed the world owed him. He blamed women for his failures. His first wife provoked him. His second disrespected him by filing for divorce. And his final act of cruelty? Making Faith live with the memory of her children's deaths, something not even death could erase. He didn't kill in a rage, he killed to make a statement. And perhaps in his mind, Faith surviving was part of the punishment. This is the hallmark of coercive control taken to its ultimate, irreversible conclusion. I'd rather destroy everything than lose control. And that's exactly what he did. After 22, Faith Green published her story. The title was as blunt as it was heartbreaking. The monster that killed his family twice.
Act 8. Aftermath and Emotional Echo. In 2022, Faith Green published her story. The title was as blunt as it was heartbreaking. the monster that killed his family twice.
In its 118 pages, she revisited the night that shattered her world, the betrayal by a man who had looked her father in the eye and then murdered his grandchildren. She also appeared in the ID Channel docuseries Evil Lives Here, in an episode titled A Special Place in Hell. Faith didn't speak as a victim, she spoke as a warning. She wanted women to pay attention to the signs, to trust their instincts, to never ignore a violent past just because it's been buried in silence or wrapped in a Sunday suit. But not everyone offered her sympathy. Online, many people asked the same brutal question. Why did you marry a convicted murderer? She claims she didn't know the full story. Maybe that's true. But even if it isn't, the real question is this. Why was Gregory ever allowed out? He stabbed his pregnant wife in the face. He killed an unborn child. He showed no remorse. Yet the justice system gave him a second chance, and he used it to destroy 6 more lives. There were warning signs. The parole board saw them. Faith saw them. The courts saw them, and they all ignored them. Now, 4 children are gone, a mother is scarred forever, and a pastor, a man of faith, has to live knowing he fought for the freedom of the man who slaughtered his grandchildren. In court, Faith sat in a wheelchair and said what no parent should ever have to say. There is no punishment that fits the crime. Not even torture or death would be justice. Your justice will come when you burn in hell for all eternity. Gregory Green is now behind bars, serving a sentence that may finally ensure he never walks free again. But the damage is done, and the echo of that damage continues in every courtroom, every parole board meeting, every family unsure whether to trust again. So now we ask you, would you take the risk of marrying someone who once took a life if they told you they'd changed? This wasn't just a crime, it was a message.